What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel, and today is of course game week 4, and this video is going to be the preview of my team heading into this weekend's action within the Premier League. Thanks to all those that did check out my previous video, which was of course the review of game week 3, which from my experience was pretty stinky, and I think across the board a lot of people had a lot of struggle that week, not picking up too many points. There was a few individuals that of course did, but of course there was many. The average was something like 43 points last week. So if you didn't check out last video, please go ahead and check that out. But yeah, moving forward, I'd like to continue doing these two videos, one a preview, one a review, but I think they may end up just merging into one, because I think this video might be a little bit shorter, in the sense that obviously there's not as much to talk about. Now, as you see here, this is my team in case you did miss it. Richarlison is the player who's blocked behind my cam. You can just see him there. Picked up 8 points, which is quite solid, but unfortunately he did of course pick up a knock midweek. So let's look at the fixtures for the weekend ahead. Now of course Chelsea host Crystal Palace for the first fixture, which is the 12:30 kickoff, followed by Everton and Brighton, Leeds, Man City, Newcastle and Burnley for the first 4 fixtures of the weekend, all occurring on Saturday. Now, Chelsea need a big performance against Palace. Palace have actually been performing pretty well, but Chelsea is Frank Lampard out of his depth. Don't want to necessarily write him off too quick. Did have quite a solid season last year despite spending no money, so he definitely needs a bit of time for those transfers to obviously gel. And sort of, yeah, I think from there, once he gets Werner firing and a few more of the boys sort of gelling in the system, I think they'll be okay. But yeah, they need a big performance there. So if you do have Werner, it may be worth sticking with him for one more week to see if you can get him firing. Obviously, Havertz got a hat-trick, I believe, in the cup competition as well. So maybe they are starting to gel, but I think time's probably running out if you have a few of the Chelsea boys. Everton play Brighton, which is a bit of an interesting one, because of course Everton have been firing on all cylinders. Rodriguez is obviously staple of my team. I think he's going to be a bit of a dark horse this year, picking up a few assists, and if he can find that form that he had at the World Cup a few years ago, then definitely if you have him in your team, you will be laughing. Now, Richarlison unfortunately picked up a bit of an ankle injury. It's 75% chance he'll be back, and I don't see him necessarily missing the Brighton game. I don't think it's too serious. I think he will make a bit of an appearance. If he'll play the full 90, I'm not sure, but for the sake of that, I actually have opted to switch him out this week, and I've just made a straight swap, basically him for Dominic Calvert-LewIN. Calvert-LewIn's actually, I think, £500,000 cheaper, and of course picking up another hat-trick midweek. Calvert-LewIn's definitely a strong addition to the side. Leeds versus Man City is an interesting one. I think Leeds will get a little bit overpowered. I think they will suffer an unfortunately another defeat, but I think it'll be another goal fest. If you have a few of the Leeds lads in midfield, or even Patrick Bamford up front, he might grab one, maybe even two, but I think, yeah, another goal fest over there. But again, if you have some Man City players, I think definitely keep your eye open on that, and maybe even captain one of the attacking players who are going to get their hands in a few assists or a few goals. Newcastle Burnley, mixed feelings about that one. Burnley didn't look necessarily too inspiring in their sort of midweek action, but Newcastle, you never really know what you're going to get from them either. So I fortunately don't have either of any players from those teams in my selection, so that's not too bad for myself. Leicester West Ham's an interesting one. West Ham on the back of a 4-0 thumping of Wolves, and Leicester, who of course just thumped Man City 5-2. So still question marks about West Ham and under Moyes. I'm not sure they have too much to offer, but of course Leicester probably gonna nick that one and grab a few goals along the way. So if you have any Leicester boys, obviously Castagnet as the left back, Jamie Vardy, I think a lot of people have James Justin, I believe it is as well. So there's a few good Leicester selections, and if you have any of them, you're probably in for a good shout. Southampton West Brom. I mean, West Brom showed up, didn't they? Callum Robinson, I believe it was, picking up some good points last week. But, I mean, for Southampton, if you have Adams or Ings, you're probably expecting maybe some form of return from either of those. Arsenal play Sheffield United, and I'm actually going to try and substitute in Leno. I think Leno could be a good choice for that. Sheffield United have not yet scored this season, and whilst Arsenal aren't necessarily known for their defensive strength, yeah, you'd probably fancy Leno to maybe pick up a clean sheet, or at the worst case scenario, pick up quite a lot of saves. Again, going forward, Arsenal, I have Aubameyang in my team. Unfortunately, he looks like he's been shipped out onto the left, so Lacazette's the main man going forward. Is there enough in Lacazette to whack him in up front? I'm not too sure. I've kept with Aubameyang, but I'd ideally like I'd like to see him being played down the centre. Wolves, Fulham haven't looked very good this year so far, so I've stuck with Jimenez up top personally myself, and I think if they are going to grab any goals going forward, there's been a bit of a debate among people if they should whack in Ings or Jimenez for their team. But I think going forward, if you're going to see any goals from Wolves, I think Jimenez is going to be involved in a vast majority of them. So I've stuck with him against an uninspiring Fulham side. He may even be able to grab a brace or at least get some form of goal return, I imagine. United Spurs, I think that'll be a bit of a snore fest, if I'm honest. Very, very few goals in that. Or at the worst case scenario, I could see it maybe being a 2-2, something along those lines. Spurs have looked okay. Bit of a push, maybe. But obviously, we know Mourinho loves his defensive style, so if they can try and lock out Manchester United, I think they'll try their best. I've still got Martial. I'm giving him a couple more weeks because I've ran out of free transfers, but I need to start seeing something from Martial soon. But I think Man United Spurs is a bit of a... If you have either players from either of those teams, I think you're going to be in for a bit of a rough weekend. Unless you have maybe Fernandes, maybe expect a Man United penalty or something along those lines. I'm not too sure what to expect from that. But Aston Villa, Liverpool, fantastic, aren't they? I think they're going to thump. Maybe not thump Aston Villa, but I think they're going to win convincingly. And if you have any Liverpool boys, Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Salah, maybe even Firmino, Mane, I think you're probably going to expect some form of return from them. Van Dijk maybe even picking up a clean sheet. So they have, of course, the fixtures for this week. Pretty mixed bag. There's a mixed bag. There's definitely points to be scored this week. And I think it'll definitely be a better week than last week, or at least I hope it is, because that was my worst week by sort of 25, 30 points. So I need to pick it up. I'm falling down in a few of my leagues. Just need a bit of a revival, really. But here is my team heading into game week 4. Of course, I understand that Calvert-Lewin is blocked by my webcam, but I'll run through his profile when, of course, we get a bit closer to the forwards. Ryan in goal. As I said, I did want to switch this out for Leno, but I have no more free transfers. So against Everton, I don't think he's going to keep a clean sheet. Is he going to save a lot of shots? Could go either way. He might pull off a masterclass and keep Everton at bay and get a lot of saves, or he might concede a lot. The floodgates might open, which I guess is kind of maybe a good thing for me, because on one hand, if Ryan picks up a lot of points, it's good for me, and if Calvert-Lewin scores a lot of goals, that's also good for me. So a bit of a mixed bag, but I think on this one, I have captain Calvert-Lewin, and if he can, grab another hat-trick, I'm in for some good points this week for sure. But let's stick with the defence. Alexander-Arnold, I've stuck with him. I think going forward, he whips loads and loads of crosses in. And from what I understand, Aston Villa aren't necessarily against crosses coming in. I think they're pretty open to letting crosses fly in left, right and centre. So, they're going to do that. Walker-Peters, I've stuck with him against West Brom. I think he can get something done, get an assist, get a clean sheet perhaps. I think there's some solid points from him. Mitchell against Chelsea is a bit of an odd one. Mitchell's been pretty good this year, pretty solid. He didn't have necessarily a good showing last week, only picking up 1 point, but 6 points and 5 points in the weeks before. There could be, again, another handful of points from him, which is what you kind of want from your defensive players, really. They're never going to be your highest scorer. They're never going to rake in the points, as someone's trying to FaceTime me here, but I'm going to ignore that and continue. I've stuck with Aubameyang, as we just scroll down here, as you can see above my webcam, just over there. I've stuck with Aubameyang this week, but again, I'm going to keep a close eye on him, because if he is being shoehorned out onto the left, how many points is he truly going to get? Apparently he prefers it out there, the ability to sort of cut in from the left, but Arsenal are very one-dimensional in our attack at the minute. We're missing a creative outlet. I'd love to see Ozil come back. I think we probably do need him, as bad as that sounds. And yes, he doesn't necessarily perform to the best of his ability week in, week out, but I think we need Ozil back. I don't think he's going to come back. I think it goes much higher than that. Of course, he's a lot of politics involved, which I don't really want to dive too much into, but Aubameyang's in for this week, not a captain. Although I'd love to see some form of return from him, being an Arsenal fan. I've gone for Salah as the vice-captain. I was going to put him as captain. But I've opted to put him as a vice-captain for now. I think he'll get some good returns against Aston Villa. He's been firing shots in. I think he has average shots per game of 5.6 or something like that. He's, of course, got 3 goals to his name this season, all coming against Leeds, I believe, first week. I expect something from him. A lot of shots, maybe even a goal or an assist. And, I think you're always expecting some points from Mo Salah week in, week out. Click is the other man rounding out my midfield. He was obviously transferred in last week. And against Manchester City, I think it's going to be a goal fest. Like I said, I think he's going to pick up a few handful of points. He's a cheapish option in the midfield, cheap and cheerful. Not too much to say on that, but expect some form of return from him. And I think that game's going to be probably the game to watch, in my opinion. Most action-packed, especially if you're a neutral fan. I think you'll want to check that game out for sure. Rodriguez with Richarlison out, I think they're going to look to Rodriguez to be that creative threat to obviously provide opportunities for Calvert-Lewin. Digne is a good option for the defence as well as Podence, actually. I should have mentioned them, but Podence again picked up a knock and is doubtful for this week. But perhaps if you have Digne as a fullback, whipping in those crosses to Calvert-Lewin, then maybe you could expect some form of return from that. But Rodriguez, I've kept him in. Haven't captained him, haven't put him as vice captain this week, but I imagine maybe he'll get an assist, maybe a goal, if we're that fortunate. As mentioned in the fixtures, I've stuck with Martial. Not really too much to say on him at the minute. I need to see some returns. Had a good back end of last season following the return to football, but this year hasn't looked fantastic. But I mean, in that sort of Manchester United attack, I can see him getting involved eventually. I think they just need to get back into the swing of things, and against Tottenham could be a good chance for him to pick up some points, hopefully. But like I said, he's on the chopping block. If I could transfer him out this week, I would, but I didn't want to take a points deduction, especially with how poor last week was. So Martial, not much to say, but he is in the team for this week. Jimenez, like I said, if Wolves are going forward, if Wolves are grabbing goals, I see him being at the forefront of that against Fulham, who have looked unaspiring. I think Wolves will pick up the win. I think if they get some goals, Jimenez will be sniffing around, maybe in a goal, maybe an assist as well. I prefer him to Ings. I think he's got a better fixture running than Ings currently. Actually, let's double check that. Yeah, Fulham, Leeds, Newcastle, Crystal Palace. I think there are goals to be had for Jimenez there. So for the meantime, I'm definitely preferring him to Ings. Keeping Jimenez in the team. Despite a poor showing last week of 0 points, I think he'll be back to his form this week and picking up a few solid points for myself. Calvert-Lewin, as I mentioned, is the last addition to this team and probably the one I'm most excited for. He's been firing on all cylinders, picking up points left, right and centre, hat-trick midweek as well. And with Richarlison, like I said, taking a knock, it seemed a no-brainer for me to why risk Richarlison not playing and getting 0 points if I can just make the straight swap, put in Calvert-Lewin and get a few additional points for myself. Now, the reason I did this was because I looked at my bench. I've got Walton in goal for Brighton. If Ryan doesn't play, Walton steps in, of course. Douglas, Bernardo and Oriol Romeu. None of them are going to score me a handful of points. If Richarlison doesn't play, I'm not really picking up a good amount of points, solid amount of attacking return. So for me, a straight swap for Calvert-Lewin makes sense. I think in the long run, I would like to get Richarlison back in because I don't know how long this Calvert-Lewin form will last. But if he proves me wrong, I'm going to be a happy guy, right? So fingers crossed on that, but that is my team for game week 4. I'm very happy with it. I don't want to necessarily panic. I think, yes, last week was a bit poor for everyone. My overall points is 174, which isn't too bad. Obviously an average of, I think, just shy of 60 pretty much. So I'll take that. No real complaints from me. Classic leagues, not doing too good right now, but that is going to be my roundup for this week. If you have any tips or tricks, or anyone that maybe you feel I should have added in, especially with these fixtures happening this week, be sure to drop a comment down below. I will reply to all of them. But best of luck to everyone in game week 4, and I'll see you early next week with my review. See you later. Bye-bye.